Yo, what's up, guys? Kusanagi reviewing the new game Nornium, currently in open beta on Steam. Is it a Zenless Zone Zero killer? We'll discuss the strengths and weaknesses with some early impressions of the game. Nornium is an action combat game similar to the Zenless Zone Zero or Wuthering Waves, set in a future where artificial humans have left Earth for space. The game currently has an overwhelmingly negative rating on Steam. I'll talk through some of the critiques as they're quite valid. Nornium delivers all the missing fan service components that were stripped out of Zenless Zone Zero by Hoyoverse. It's clear with each character the design focus on high quality waifus and the ability to interact with the girls throughout the story being one of the stronger points of the game. There's also enough variation in the character designs that you can find a character that you'd be particularly interested in. The big problem with the game, however, is the beta launch, only supporting Chinese language option, and the mechanisms of the game are overly complex for an action combat game. I found myself at several points asking others for help in the official Discord server out of frustration that I seemingly couldn't progress to the Gacha system or get to a point where I could really experience the more fan servicey aspects of the game that were advertised. I'm going to go a bit deeper on the character as each has their own unique design and alternative skins that can be unlocked via an ascension mechanism or what I assume will be a battle pass skin in the future. Setting the game to maximum detail really shows the work done by the design team, and the Japanese voice acting of each character gives the characters a unique personality. Once again, this is one of the stronger parts of the game as you can interact with each of the characters in the dorm system in order to further develop your relationship with them. What's unclear to me, though, is how much this will impact the game's story or the ability to oath a character like you would in a game like Azure Lane. Character building is similar to most other gachas you find on the market. Duplicate copies will unlock constellations and open new abilities. Each skill has a level and requires specific materials to improve. Characters have different classes of weapons, and higher rarity weapons will provide unique skills or buffs if they're the signature weapon for that character. There's also a relic system, however, I wasn't able to get into the relic system nor learn how much the RNG is going to require a endgame farm for the best substats on a relic. The gacha system, I think, is one of the other rewarding aspects of the game. It's currently a 2.7 rate. It's much more favorable than the traditional Hoyoverse rate we've seen adopted by the industry. Currently, the open beta gives you about 1,000 tickets, so you can use those to pretty much pull everything off the standard banner and more or less guarantee you should get at least one 6-star character, 6-star weapon, and some of the 6-star furniture that allows you to interact with the characters in the dorm room. The gacha itself is quite interesting because the train animation lets you open each door individually, and in some cases it'll let you re-roll on the 6-star item if you didn't get the on-banner item or you don't like the item that you got out of the train. The twist on the standard stuff is kind of cool. I would say that the ability for the furniture system to be as part of the item set that you pull in the standard banner is really nice. It's not going to be the 3-star weapon kind of trash that we generally see in a lot of gacha games that you're going to end up discarding or using for fodder. So getting some additional furniture and stuff for your dorm system is kind of nice because you're allowed to use that, obviously, to interact with your waifu. The Japanese voice acting is also very good, but without proper translation, I think the storytelling is going to be hard for hard for players to understand what's going on with each of the characters. Since I'm semi-Japanese literate, I could understand about 50 to 60% of what was being discussed. It is your standard protagonist game where the main character has a special ability, and they are trying to fight some, evil power within the universe. I think that I don't expect a whole lot out of gacha game stories for the most part. There's going to be some plot twists, etc., etc. I think as long as the voice acting and the narrative is interesting enough for the characters to develop and for you to like or grow to like the character, that should be more than enough for most players. One thing that is a trip up for your traditional gacha experience is that the story has bad endings, and so it's actually very easy to activate these if you aren't paying attention. You're skipping through dialogues. You can get in an infinite loop and be stuck in thinking, oh, this must be a bug. No, it's not a bug. It's because you didn't actually answer the correct question or answer with the right answer, so you hit a bad ending. This is very different. We'll see how the global audience likes this once the game's actually fully translated. I think personally it's a nice twist on the general kind of visual novel flow that we see in most of these gacha games. For example, in Genshin Impact, for most of the choices, they don't matter or the same option is basically specified twice, and it doesn't even matter. You're just having to click a button to progress the story, and there's no skip button. So there is a skip button in this game, but you use it at your own precaution, because obviously if you end up on a bad ending, you're going to have to go back and rewind and figure out, okay, well, what choice did I make that led me to the bad ending? So for the lore heavy connoisseurs of gacha games, I think this game will probably feel that niche a bit. I'm not going to say the story's bad or it's good or anything. I think it's just too early to really judge. Just without, not having a proper translation makes it difficult. I think the voice acting, though, is very good. It does draw the proper narrative to whatever is going on screen. Now, let's talk about the weakest points of the game. The combat of the game is, I would say, worse or as bad as Zenless Zone Zero. In many cases, it feels brainless. The combos for each character do have some uniqueness, but they don't feel on par to other characters. The main character, for example, is very strong, but then falls off hard in difficult fights. The other part to this is just things feel very spammy. Combos don't really feel like they have good damage multipliers. Parries and dodges also don't really feel that good. Generally, in a game, when I do a dodge, like action timing in, I expect some kind of bullet time or some kind of energy regen, so that way I could then go into my next skill, or I could use my ultimate skill against an enemy. And that's the other part to this, is the ultimates look very flashy, they look very good, but in some cases they either totally obliterate the easy enemies that feel like they're level 1 enemies, or you go against a boss that seems to have some kind of HP sponge mechanic, and your ultimate does basically nothing. And so you feel like you're just kind of button mashing at the end of the day, doing brainless combat until the boss is dead. And that was my biggest criticism of Zenless Zone Zero, is the multipliers just didn't really feel there when you're pulling off more difficult combat things like parries and dodges or combo strings that for some people, I would expect there should be some kind of reward mechanism. You should feel good about, I pulled off this combo or dodge or timing. Should be able to get some extra damage on the boss, and it just doesn't really feel that way currently in the game. It feels very button mashing. So I put this in the ZZZ category. It is brainless combat. I think that they need to really improve this and really rethink how do they want characters to be rewarded for how they play the game. The other part to combat is there is a roguelike system, which I believe will be our endgame content for the most part. I think that this is the diamond in the rough. Unfortunately, it has problems with being overly complex and not really understanding whether buffs or debuffs are going to help or hurt you, primarily because the game is in Chinese currently. So there's no yellow paint as well to help you at least get through your first one to figure out what should I be doing in order to make my burn cards do more damage or improve a buff and level the buffs, or how are these things interacting with my current characters on the field. Those things are all kind of unknowns, and it's really hard to get a grasp of what pathing should I use at these early stages of the roguelike to be able to clear the content successfully and then learn from that experience and get better at the game. So I think that they need to make some changes to it, particularly once it comes to global, to make it more on par, I think, with what we are accustomed with Sim Universe and Honkai Star Rail. I think now that they've now done their 4th iteration of that, they've kind of cleaned it up around the edges. It's not so obnoxious to do, and you have a good understanding of what are the things that are going to buff your character, what are the things that are going to make your team weaker, or what are the buffs that you should avoid because they're not compatible with your current kit. All of those are things that could be paint or markers or recommended cards that, as they pop up, the game says, hey, you should pick up this card. None of that kind of exists in the current roguelike. I do think that it is one of the more fun things at higher levels if you end up playing this game long term, and it would be something that I personally enjoy, as roguelike games have a good level of skill difficulty to them once you get into the higher end game and you're having to make more smarter choices about your team loadouts and the types of buffs and debuffs that you're picking up along the way. Overall, the game in its current state needs a lot of work to possibly become a side game. I could see this game being something I'd play casually to build my favorite characters and play through the roguelike system if they make significant improvement to the combat itself. If you're thinking about playing the game, I would personally wait until an English beta or a global release is available. If you're currently playing the game and have similar critiques, now's the time to make your voice heard as there's opportunity to improve the game. I personally keep this game on my wish list and hope that the developer takes some of the surrounding discussion seriously, as the gacha rates and fan service in the game are better than what we've seen in recent memory. If you made it this far into the video, please leave a like, sub, and comment your thoughts below. I appreciate every one of you guys that drop by the stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Twitch. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.